Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating, data-driven mystery. What is actually happening inside an animal's mind when humans step in to save them? We've all seen the footage, right? A wild animal is freed from a snare, a net, maybe a mud pit, and then it seemingly pauses to acknowledge its rescuer. But what's really going on neurologically and biologically in those split seconds? Today, we're strictly looking at the data to find out.
It's a question that hooks absolutely all of us when we scroll past those viral rescue videos. So, let's play scientific detective for a bit and unpack the biological reality behind these incredibly emotional moments. We see a trapped animal, we step in to help, and we desperately want to believe there's this mutual understanding happening. But to truly grasp the cognitive mystery at play here, we have to look past what we want to see and instead focus on millions of years of evolutionary hardwiring.
We naturally want to assume the animal understands our good intentions, We're cutting the net, we're opening the trap, we're the good guys. But the hard biological truth is that wild animals have a threat assessment that is just constantly running in the background. It's inherited, it's encoded at a level way deeper than their own individual experience. So when we walk up to them, the animal doesn't read rescuer. Its threat assessment is screaming that an apex predator has just cornered it at its absolute most vulnerable moment.
To really get why they react the way they do, we have to look at their locked physiology. The second a wild animal loses its ability to move, its body enters a state that literally has no human equivalent. Its body is burning through every single reserve it has to run every emergency system at once. To put that into perspective, a study in the European Journal of Wildlife Research found that ungulates, so animals like deer, caught in fencing actually show higher cortisol levels than animals that were struck by vehicles or injured by gunshot. The adrenaline alone spikes to levels that would be straight up lethal if sustained for more than a few minutes. From the outside, this extreme physiological state has a very distinct look. You're going to see fully dilated pupils, incredibly fast, shallow breathing, and muscles that aren't just tense, they are rigidly locked. Wildlife rehabilitators describe this not just as simple stress, but as the animal going somewhere else. They are committing entirely to a single outcome. And this brilliantly explains why an animal's thrashing actually gets worse the closer a rescuer gets. Their threat system interprets you getting closer as the final phase of a hunt, so it spends its very last ounces of energy on the only response its evolutionary history has ever taught it.
But right here is where we hit a really fascinating anomaly. Sometimes that frantic thrashing just suddenly stops. Why? Well, it comes down to something called threat pattern recognition. Think about it. A predator closes in fast, aggressive, directly at you. But a human who is trying to help moves completely differently, right? Slowly, without sudden gestures, maybe touching the trap instead of the actual animal. The animal's brain searches its entire evolutionary library of threat signatures for this weird, methodical movement, and it comes up empty. Because the human doesn't fit the expected predator template, the animal's crisis response just stalls out. A real-world encounter with a trapped Yellowstone wolf shows us exactly what this looks like in practice. When the research team approached the trap, the wolf lunged and snapped. Exactly as biology predicts. But then, one of the researchers stopped moving. He held steady, non-aggressive eye contact without looking away. Now, in nature, an approaching predator tracks movement. It doesn't hold sustained, totally still eye contact. Because this behavior sat entirely outside the standard predator threat template, the wolf actually stopped lunging, sat down, and just watched. Field researchers call this a suspension of threat response. The panic doesn't necessarily turn off, but it basically loses its anchor point.
All right, Section 1, Beyond Survival, the neurological deep dive.
So what is actually happening in the brain when the animal realizes it's free, and instead of just bolting immediately, it interacts with the humans who freed it? Well, consider this absolutely incredible rescue from December 2005 off the coast of San Francisco. A 50-ton female humpback whale was tangled in 12 heavy crab traps. We're talking 90 pounds each, dragging her downward. When 4 divers got into the water with curved knives, she stopped moving entirely. For over an hour, she held her position. But she didn't just freeze. She actively repositioned herself. She rotated, extended a fin, and adjusted her angle to give the divers better access to cut those lines. And when she was finally freed, she swam in wide circles and then actually surfaced beside each diver individually, gently nudging them with their jaw before swimming away. Now, one diver described it as feeling like gratitude. But science actually anchors this in biology, specifically through something called spindle neurons. These are highly specialized brain cells associated with empathy and incredibly rapid social decision-making. For the longest time, we assumed they only existed in primates. But whales, along with great apes and elephants, possess them too.
meaning this whale had the exact neurological architecture required for deep empathy and complex social processing. She was literally built to understand what was happening.
Moving right along to Section 2, the elephant proof of concept, cognition in action.
40,000. That is the number of individual muscles in an elephant's trunk. To put that into perspective, the entire human body only has about 600. The trunk is their primary sensory organ, and it carries a density of nerve endings entirely comparable to human fingertips. This is so crucial for understanding their behavior after a rescue, because when an elephant reaches out to touch a rescuer with its trunk, it is absolutely not a random, flailing, or casual gesture. It's a highly deliberate, intense cognitive examination of the human who just helped them.
Researchers working in these rescue contexts have noticed a very specific pattern. Rescued elephants will often hold trunk-to-arm or trunk-to-hand contact with their rescuers for several seconds. The touch is remarkably slow and deliberate. It's a true sensory examination, which is vastly different from the panicked, reactive kind of collision you'd expect from a prey animal just trying to escape a predator. And honestly, this deliberate interaction makes perfect sense when we look at their vast cognitive toolkit. Elephants are known to mourn their dead, literally returning years later to touch the bones of deceased companions. They are capable of mirror self-recognition, and they hold on to incredibly complex social memories across decades. With this amazing level of neurological sophistication, it is biologically undeniable that they have the cognitive equipment needed to distinguish between a human who just caused them harm and a human who just ended their suffering.
But what's really fascinating here is the behavioral anomaly itself. Once freed from the mud or a snare, with the threat totally gone, there is absolutely no biological reason for the animal to stick around. Survival instincts dictate immediate flight. Get out of there. And yet, in documented cases, elephants just stand near their rescuers for minutes after release. They don't flee, they don't start grazing, they just simply remain present with the humans before eventually wandering away.
The data definitely confirms that certain animals, like whales, elephants, and wolves, can indeed suspend their terror, process non-threatening behavior, and make incredibly deliberate, complex contact after being rescued. But as our scientific understanding continues to grow, I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought. When an animal pauses to look at us or touch us after being saved, are they truly experiencing what we call gratitude? Or is our own highly evolved human pattern recognition just projecting our own nature onto them? The data is still rolling in,